My name is Bruno, and I'm here to talk with you about the challenge in developing products focused on emerging countries. Okay, so it's a very important topic. We are all discussing these and this challenge right now. So let's deep dive on this topic right now. So we will talk about a little bit my background, my experiences, and then who are the users, the main challenge on developing products, companies competing for customers, model and overview, and zooming in, merging retail and payment experience. So talking a little bit about my background, I started my career at the most traditional banks and worked in many banks. And more recently, I worked at Mercado Pago, Sodexo, Amazon, and now I'm head of product and digital channels at Alelo. And here you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So starting about the user. So the first and most important topic when we discuss about product creation, and at the end of the day, value creation, you are talking about the users. And the first step is, who are the users? How to understand the users, how to solve their pains, how to solve their problems, okay? So if we zoom in some clusters of users, you'll find basically the user I'm calling the TikToker. I mean, this is the digital native user, heavy user on social media. Digital payments is part of their life. So, I mean, they are very used to in-app transactions, QR codes, peer-to-peer, and so on. E-commerce is part of their daily routine. I mean, they do not separate purchases I want to have on e-commerce and purchase I want to have on brick and mortar stores. For them, it's all the same. And they are heavy users on e-commerce. They are very used to buying through e-commerce, accessing, and so on. Of course, they do not watch television. They consume streaming content. They do not spend hours waiting for their preferred program, their preferred show on TV. They just access YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and so on, and have that content. And of course, they are heavy users of TikTok and heavy users on Instagram. So this is the user. This is the kind of user that will get in touch with some brand or some value proposition, first and foremost on Instagram and on TikTok, then on the traditional media places or traditional media broadcasting like TV, like newspaper, and so on. Then we have the outlooker. So this is the kind of person who was born without all these digital resources and all these digital features. So this cluster, this kind of user, this kind of people learn to use a personal computer. They learn to use the most and traditional computer resources, and then they migrated to a smartphone. So these guys migrated to a desktop, to a laptop, to a Nokia, to an iPhone. So this is the guy who learned how to deal with the offline world and now the online world. Much different than the TikToker. The TikToker, the online world, the online life is the same as offline life. For the outlooker, that's different. So these guys are really used to cash, debit, and credit card. They are used to that. They born with those payment methods, and they are much more comfortable using accessing that than on payment apps or peer-to-peer and so on. They tend to rely more on brick and mortar stores. They are now turning their attention to e-commerce, especially because of COVID-19. So they learn how to access it, and they gain more confidence in accessing these channels, these online channels. And of course, they migrated from the VHS to DVD and now to Netflix. So they know how to access, they know how to use all those analog media resources and of course they know and they learn how to use and how to appreciate streaming content. They were born without any kind of social media. I mean, social media for outlookers were the gossip, the more traditional gossip and people discussing and chatting and so on. And they learned how to use Facebook. They are heavy users on WhatsApp and so on. And now, I mean, this is the most non-digital kind of people, what I call Nokia. So they are not digital. I mean, real life is real life. They are trying to access now the online world, social media, and so on. But it's not so natural to this Nokia as is natural to a TikToker, of course. They are cash-based. They are cash preferred, especially because they have some difficulties, they have some barriers to access payment methods online, like accessing some internet, some online banking, and of course in-app banking or in-app purchase and so on. They have some difficulties accessing that. Of course, they rely on brick and mortar stores. They rely on TV, so these guys are the guys that watch cable TV, they wait for their preferred TV show and so on. And of course, they rely on phone calls and especially on WhatsApp phone calls. So they learn how to use WhatsApp to keep in touch with their relatives, with their family. But they are not the kind of people that access a lot social media. They are trying to and they are learning how to access and how to live with that. Okay. So that said, we have basically a very digital native kind of people, especially the young one. These guys are now starting to go to college, start to go to university, start to work. So we will have to understand how these guys will behave in economy right now. And we have another on the extreme opposite. We have the Nokia, which okay, it's not digital, but we have to provide products and services to this kind of people also. We have to make easier for them to access digital products, payment products, and so on. So moving to main challenge on developing products. So keeping in mind and having in mind the people, or I mean our target in developing products, especially on emerging countries, have some challenge in this direction. So first one is local regulation. I mean, if you work for a company like in the US or European Union, it's not the same thing to develop products, keeping in mind those regulations, then develop some products for Brazil, for Argentina, for Colombia, for India, for China, for Australia, and so on. What I mean is regulation changes a lot, especially in emerging countries. They tend to have some specific regulation, and if we do not pay attention on this regulation, on those tiny details, we will have much more difficult to launch and to succeed in these new markets. So paying attention on the regulation, having some good support on local law, it's crucial to succeed and to not make some mistakes and start to develop some products that at the end of the day will not be sustainable because of they are not compliant with local regulation. Then, which is close to local regulation, we have GDPR and data policy. So there are some emerging countries that are now starting to understand what is data policy, how to behave with that, and so on. But most of them have some kind of law, local law, or local regulation of that. And some of them express that they say that the local data from users, local data from local users have to be kept in country and not abroad. So again, this is a detail that may be crucial on developing some products. And more and more countries are worried about data and how to keep their users' data safe. So it's a very important topic to understand. And of course, each country has their policy. I mean, there is no one policy, one global policy for data protection. Then we move to credit score. So if you live in US or European Union, probably you don't think about credit score. I mean, it's easy. It's easy to have a, I mean, good or normal credit score. I don't know how to call it. But when you consider emerging countries, it's not that easy. So a great part of population from these emerging countries cannot access any kind of financial products or banking products because they do not have a good credit score. They do not have a high credit score. So if we're trying to launch a product, if we're trying to launch a kind of service that is based on credit score, we have to pay attention on that. So it's much more easier to launch something that is not based on credit score than discover at the end of the day that, oh, credit score is important, and because of that, I was targeting 1 million users, but because of their low credit score, now I'm targeting 100,000 users. So that may change a lot the valuation of our business. That may change a lot how you deliver value and how you solve pains to those users. Okay, it's not obvious that if I'm developing some kind of product, those users will have a good credit score to access that. It's not obvious, and we have to pay attention on that, especially on emerging countries. Then we go to sales channels. Many countries have the culture of stores, of brick and mortar point of sales, of bank branches, and so on. But there are some locations in those countries that are hard to access. They're hard to get. So if we're trying to get a product, and if you're trying to go in a massive way with this product or this service, you have to pay attention on the sales channels. Maybe you understand that going digital, it's easier, or going digital is the best way to reach more people with your product or with your service. And of course, you have to pay attention on the time to deliver it, the time to reach those customers. And sales channels tends to be the most expensive way and tends to be a very important cost line to companies. So that's also a thing to pay attention on. Again, if we're trying to just copy and paste the same digital sales channel or the same brick and mortar sales channel that you can find in developed countries, if we're trying to just copy and paste this to emerging countries, you will not succeed. The way they consume it, the way they access sales channels will of course be different, right? Then we reach anti-money laundering and fraud prevention. Oh boy, this is a very fun topic because again, if you look to US, if you look to European Union, it's much more safe having, especially online purchases and in-app and so on. When you migrate to other emerging countries, and I'm from Brazil, I can tell it from Brazil, online frauds are very, very high in Brazil, and we have to pay attention on that. Online frauds and especially tentatives of money laundering. So usually there are some ways that people try to surpass the law, surpass the controls some countries have. So that's a very important topic to pay attention on, not only because of money loss or because, okay, we will have to invest more in security, but because of image damage. Once you have your product, once you have your service linked to a kind of money laundering activity because of some illegal activity, it's very, very bad. So the reputation will be affected because of it. So it's very important to pay attention. It's very important to have some benchmarks, some local benchmarks, companies that are already competing on these countries and how they are working to prevent this kind of activities, some potential partners that will help you, that will support you to prevent and to fastly attack this kind of activities. This is very important. And I may say that it's very a local business, and to understand the local culture, the local ways of anti-money laundering activities and fraud prevention, you have to understand, you have to study a lot the local economy, and then look for potential partners to understand better, and maybe sometime we will be able to develop your own tools. But first and foremost, you have to understand how those activities behave in these countries. And then UX. I think UX is one of the most important topics when developing products on emerging countries, especially because there are some features, there are some services that are not so good on these countries. So, for example, if you are trying to launch a e-commerce or a marketplace, you will rely on the post service to deliver your product. So if you are in the United States, that's no problem. I mean, it's very easy. You have some companies that can deliver everything in every city. But if you are in other countries that do not have those good services when we talk about delivery, that may be a pain point. Because at the end of the day, you are not only offering the purchase, but you're offering the full service, the purchase and the delivery. Okay, so that's a very good example of how to pay attention on these local issues when launching a product. And of course, when you talk about UX, we're talking about interaction flow. So how to communicate, the words to be used, the phrases, how people interact with sales channel, how do people interact with the company, with social media, and so on. Okay, the device that is used for these people. If there are people that rely more on notebooks, for example, to have some purchase, so the UX will be one. No, we're talking about people that rely more on smartphones, so the UX will be other one. We're talking about people that can access high-end smartphones like a Samsung, like a Apple, or no, we're talking about people that have some feature smartphones that are not so powerful. So the app will be different, the UX of this app will be different, and we have to pay attention on the size of the app. If this app is not using much memory of the much capacity of the smartphone, and especially talking about smartphones and online sales channels, have to pay attention on the font size and on the language. So there are some countries that people are well educated and they can understand phrase, they can understand more complex words, more complex phrase constructions, and so on. But there are some other countries or other regions that people are not so well educated. They do not have some access to education, and they tend to have some difficulties to understand some context, some texts, or some phrases. So paying attention on that, understanding the user, understand their life, understand how they learn. It's very precious to put the right information on the right size with the right font size. Of course, for the Nokias, that's much more sensitive. To provide a very smoothly experience. If someone is accessing a app, for example, that is fit for their smartphone with a good font size, but with a language that is far from their reality, they will not feel welcome to use this solution. Then, of course, you have to pay attention on the information flow and connection, especially when we're talking about digital products, especially when we're talking about digital channels to contact these customers. We have to pay attention on the connection. There are some countries that the internet connection, that the mobile connection is not an issue. There are other countries that this is a very sensitive topic, and people cannot consume information in a smoothly way because they have some limitations with their internet connection. So understanding that will drive the way your app or your solution is built. For example, if you live in a or if you are buying if you are designing some services for people in some kind of country that do not have a good internet access, you have to understand how to develop this app, what information and what services can be delivered offline or with a higher time margin than completely online, to not mess the all experience. Maybe, for example, we can have some services that are based on SMS, for example, because that do not is based in internet connection. So we have to understand very precisely how these people and how the users deal with internet connection, how they change their information, how they exchange their information with other companies, with other websites, because that, at the end of the day, will drive the way you build your app, your website, and will drive the way the user will interact with your product or your service. And the last but not the least, how to merge brick and mortar services and the brick and mortar world. So many emerging countries have established brick and mortar services, brick and mortar stores, and they are now shifting to the digital world. So they have good assets here when we talk about brick and mortar stores, when we talk about service that people were used to, and now they are pushing to make this transition to the digital world. So they have this asset, they have the potential to create this omni-channel experience. This is not easy, this is not play vanilla. I mean, it's not, okay, I will create a website and this is it. No, all the goods flow, it's different from a brick and mortar store, from a digital marketplace, for example. So paying attention in how to use in a good way those established assets and merge it with the digital ecosystem, the digital services, may leverage the potential and may leverage the way consumers will interact and will access this kind of service, especially on a COVID-19 scenario with social distance. Okay. So having all these challenges and having all the profiles we discussed, now we're getting into companies competing for customers, how they work, and a overview. So first and foremost, we have the fintechs. We have the more cool companies that are more young one and started to deploy solutions to solve specific user pains. I mean, they do not create a bundle of services, but instead of, they design a specific solution to solve specific users' pain, but in a very good, in a very smoothly way. So at the very beginning, they have a few solutions. They were 100% digital. They do not have the capacity to build brick and mortar services or brick and mortar based products. Of course, they tend to be more flexible and more adapted, especially because they are incumbents, they are new companies, and they have to adapt very quickly on the user's demands and on the user's needs, right? And in many business, they were the first movers. Then we have, as an example, the banks. So the established banks, very financial, strong, they were pushed to digital by the impact of fintechs and bad customer feedbacks. I mean, they were brick and mortar business based, and they were pushed by customers willing to access more digital services, more digital features, and so on. So they have many products, but not with the best UX. I mean, they have credit cards, debit card, checking account, saving account, so on and so forth, but with not the best UX. I mean, all based on traditional contact channels, on traditional sales channel. They have a strong credit offer, which gives them some advantage on revenue generation. They are not fast followers. I mean, they have to move very smoothly to not break with their whole business. I mean, they were not prepared to go digital. They have to learn what is digital and then how to behave with digital, and then to merge the brick and mortar stores, the brick and mortar business with their digital solutions. And of course, they started based on desktop, and then they migrated to apps. And we have, of course, the retail. And the retail have a very curious thing here, because they were pushed to digital as an answer to online marketplaces. I mean, when they saw the rise of online marketplaces, I think it was a little bit late, but some of them were very successful in addressing their solutions, their products to online marketplace. And they created those digital tools as a market strategy, as a first step. So they learned how to use social media. They learned how to use other more young channels to deliver their products, deliver their message, deliver their good image to the public and to consumers. And they identified e-commerce as a way to expand their sales, expand their solution, as a way to add new sales channels, and as a way to merge with the brick and mortar store business. But they are still struggling to create omni-channel sales. I mean, they at the first movement, they just thought that, oh, okay, it's just creating a website and selling through it, but it's not. The experience is completely different. The delivery is a very sensitive topic, and it's not plain vanilla. It's not easy, so they have to enter in a very tough learning curve to deliver those services, to deliver those goods through online channels, and they struggled in merging the omni-channel, the brick and mortar store, with the digital solutions. So, and when we think on their business model, okay, when you talk about fintechs, every fintech on their early stage, they're focused on growth and on monthly active users. I mean, they want more users, they want to grow fast. That's the rule of thumb for fintechs. They are app based. Of course, they do not have any kind of brick and mortar business. And of course, their main users are young generations and unbanked people. When you talk about emerging countries, that's the way many people are now accessing some kind of financial products, insurance, banking services, or even online education, some kind of professional activities, because now they can access it through an app, because they do not live nearby any kind of service center to access this kind of services. And fintechs are leading the growth on young generations and on unbanked people, and not only for financial services, for online education, for medical services, also through online video calls and so on. So that's a very important drive for unbanked people, especially on locations that they cannot access some kind of services. Then, when we think about banks, they are focused on margin and profitabilities. I mean, they have to keep their positive results as a way of increase their stock value, of course. First and foremost, they're focused on brick and mortar, so they had some time in having this shift from brick and mortar stores to to apps and online-based solutions. Most of them are developing their own solutions, and of course, this was a pain point for banks. They do not, at the first glance, they did not rely on fintechs as a way to deliver a more smoothly UX, better solutions, and so on. So they developed their own solutions, and that took them more time to understand UX, to understand how the user behaves in a digital way. So that took them a very, very hard moment to develop their own solutions, and many of them are struggling to deliver the best UX, the best solution, because they do not have the right skills to develop their own online solutions, their own apps. And of course, many users for these traditional companies, these traditional banks, are formal works, are adults and banked people. We talked about that in a slide before. We're talking about people that have good credit score. They can access banks. So accessing banking products for people with good credit score is not a pain. This is only a pain for people without a good credit score. That's the focus of fintechs, people that do not have a good credit score, but are willing to have access to financial services, are willing to access some kind of services that they cannot reach right now. And when I talk about retail, of course, they are also focused on profitability, on high margins, and also on reducing payment costs, because retail was not merged with payments at the first beginning. They did not have their own payment solution, so they are also focused on reducing payment costs. But retail, the big retailers had a different approach. They partnered with banking as a service companies or fintech as a service companies and so on to access more digital, to access more updated services and have a fast development of solutions. So that's the way they understand to catch up with fintechs and do not lose relevance on consumer mindset. So that was a very important step on retail. And they understood that it's better to partner with someone to learn how to access it, to learn how to develop this kind of product, than try to develop their own solutions. Their main users are unbanked people and middle class. So for retail, having some kind of digital products, having some kind of financial services, and getting in touch with consumers, with users through app, through digital channels was a way to sell more and to sell better and to attend better these customers. And when we deep dive on their revenue sources, when we talk about fintechs, we're talking about commissioning and lead generation, because they have a very narrow portfolio of products, and in some cases they partner with other companies to deliver these products, to deliver these services. So their revenues are mainly commissioning, like commissioning for selling some goods, commissioning for financial services, commissioning for other kind of retail-related services, and of course, lead generation, generating new sales, generating new business for, in some cases, established companies. When we talk about banks, we are, of course, talking about interest rates, we're talking about maintenance fees and pay-per-use services like withdrawals, card issuance, loans, and so on. Of course, when fintechs start to arise and started to understand the pains and how to solve customers' problems, these are customers' problems. I mean, high interest rates, high maintenance fees, people that do not want to pay for card issuance, do not want to pay high fees on loans and so on. So they started to understand that this is a business with high margins, and I can charge much less our users for these services, and even with that, I can be profitable because my cost structure it is much lighter than a bank's cost structure. So what is now the main revenue sources for banks are the how can I say, the differentiation that fintechs are offering to their customers. I mean, we will not pay high interest rates, we will not pay maintenance fee. We as fintechs are like friendly in those ways, and that was a challenge for banks. So banks had to reinvent the way they are keeping their margin, because fintechs are trying to solve customers' problems, also reducing costs for them. And when we talk about retail, of course, we are talking about commissioning, we're talking about sales increase, their own ecosystem. So, and of course, the marketplace model. So for retail, the financial services, payment services, credit services, and so on, these features, these services, it's a way to sell more. It's a way to increase their margin by selling through their own tools, by selling through their own credit services, by their own micro loans, and so on and so forth. And they understood that shifting from a only on e-commerce to a on e-commerce plus marketplace model, it's also a way to generate fees per sales. So now some important retailers, especially on emerging countries, on large emerging countries, they create their marketplace not as a way to stop selling their own products, no, but as a way to offer more and more services, offer more and more products, maybe some kind of products that were hard for them to offer by their own, and especially to deliver those services, deliver those products in some regions that they could not easy access with their own e-commerce, with their own market, delivery method. So this marketplace model, of course, generate fees per sales. So if I'm a retail, I'm established retail, I can sell my own product, I can sell my own good, and that's good because I can keep my high margin using my only fintech, my own fintech service, my own fintech product. But if some kind of user are looking for a different kind of product, I can partner with someone, offer it in a marketplace model. I will keep the engagement of this user, I will keep the engagement of my customer, and I will also have some marketplace fee as a on revenue. So that's good. They are diversifying their revenue generation model, and of course they are giving more and more options to their customers. And when we zoom in retail and payment experience, we have some fun and some curious scenarios here. So traditionally, retailers offered private label and co-brand cards to consumers to increase their engagement through exclusive offers or loans. So having some private label cards, having some co-branded credit cards or debit cards or prepaid cards or gift cards, it was a very traditional way to sell more and to keep more in contact with those users. But we may say that those users were not so willing to access those kind of products. Of course, it's a way to keep their engagement. It's a way to maybe increase some sales. But when we shifted from a offline payment like cards, a physical payment method like cards, to a online payment method, this tends to be a more efficient payment method, and this tends to increase engagement by merging payments and retail with a digital solution, with a digital payment solution. Not only the retailers will be able to offer payment methods, but also to collect customer data, to understand to understand better their behavior, to be more close with the customer, and to offer them better promotions, better products, better UX also. So when we think about merging retail and payment experience, we can think about a unique registration. I mean, the user will be registered in some website or in some app, and this process has to be a very smoothly one to not scare the consumer and this consumer drop off the process. Have to pay attention to the language, a language that fits the user culture, that fits how this user behave. Depending on the country, payment methods are crucial, especially payments. There are some countries that people have some difficulties. It's hard for people pay something in cash or pay something in just before they receive their purchase. So they have to pay installments, so they can afford paying small installments for a long period, then pay a huge amount of cash in only one transaction. Also, it's important to think about pickup and store options, because for some regions that may decrease the total cost of acquisition, because we're thinking about the cost of the product and then the cost of delivery. When you have the pickup in store option, the total cost of purchase may decrease, and this will break some barriers for customers in buying online. Of course, when you think about customers that are willing to receive in their homes, a fast shipment is crucial. In some cases, people are willing to pay more to receive a faster delivery. So, of course, you have to think about how to offer standard services and how to offer a fast shipment to fit those customers' need. And when you think about online experience, it's also crucial to have a very detailed information about the product. So I'm talking about very, very good and very clear photos from each product, every information about size, about how it works, about how to install the product, and so on, because that will make the customer feel more confident about buying this product. And on the other hand, all these online experience can be merged with a brick and mortar store experience, and we can merge both out in a brick and mortar store experience. So when you think about the brick and mortar store experience, we can think about in-store Wi-Fi access. So maybe some retailer can enable exclusive in-app offers for those registered users that are accessing that app in store, and to enable it and to stimulate it. Having free Wi-Fi access in store, it's a very good step. Also, we have to think about massive solutions to be scalable and to reach the most number of people. But these solutions have to be personal solutions. Like, okay, I'm Bruno, I'm accessing some website, or some app or whatever, but this retail understands me. This retail just offer me meaningful things that I like. So that's cool. I really appreciate that. So that's really important. And data is crucial to that. Understanding the behavior of the customer, understand how to collect all this information and drive it to a personal experience. It's crucial to its success. Also, as I mentioned, exclusive offers, exclusive promotions in app. So we can merge the stores, brick and mortar stores, with in-app only offers and promotions. You can also have payment methods, also linked to installments, with brick and mortar stores, and that can be first a way to deliver a better experience and better payments experience in store. So faster checkout, more payment solutions like installments, and also collecting more data from users. And at the end of the day, this data can be used to deliver more products, to understand better each user expectation, and at the end of the day, this data can be used to increase the engagement of each user. Another very successful feature that some retailers are now applying: buy in store, deliver at home. So this is interesting not only because of the convenience that someone can buy in store and do not need to carry this good to their home, but also because some retailers can have a not so big store or a very tiny store, because their products, their goods can be kept in the storage and not in store. So that's a mindset change. So you can have the same. Some retailers can have the same sales level with a very small space, a very small store, and also provide a good experience to users. Of course, have to pay attention on delivery. It's not only, oh, okay, you buy something here and I will deliver to you in the next month. No, the experience has to be smoothly, has to be good. But that's a way to decrease in-store costs. And on the other way, merge the return a product to the store. So maybe I bought something online, but I had some issues, I had some trouble, and I want to return it in a store because I just found a store that's close to me or that's on my way to work, for example. So that's also a way to create this omnichannel experience, and it's also a way to provide a better, complete experience to user. Of course, if you deliver a return a product to a store, you have to be able to handle it. Otherwise, you will mess and you confuse users even more than solve their problems. So at the end, guys, change take only seconds, not years. Nowadays, a customer can install and uninstall an app in a few seconds. I mean, the same velocity a traditional retailer or bank is forgotten by the rise of a new player with a better UX. I mean, people nowadays are more open to test new services, to test new players, to test new ways of buying. So if you as a retail cannot offer the best experience, cannot offer the best product, they will just uninstall your app and start using another app. They're not so loyal to brands as they used to be years ago. They now can access in many easy ways, much more options. They do not have to rely on only one option. So that's a final message to you guys to keep in mind that the relation with users, it's very sensitive. Once they lost confidence in our service, once they lost confidence in our product, it's very hard to gain it again. So thank you for this time. Thank you for being with me in this webinar. Please join me and contact with me on LinkedIn. And thank you. Bye.